They have a lot to do with silver. Silver, like gold, has proven itself over millennia as an inflation and a chaos hedge, a hedge against uncertainty. And I mean, what makes silver different are a couple of things. One is obviously it's less expensive than gold. That as you progress through a precious metals bull market, silver tends to outperform gold because people who have maybe come late to the party tend to look for an alternative after they've seen gold run. Silver tends to be that alternative. If we look back, for example, at the 1970s, when we have, I guess, the most comparable period in terms of economics and inflation and money printing, etc. There are some parallels and there are some differences. The big difference is that debt to GDP, if we use the US for example, was much, much lower. Debt was about 35% of GDP. Today it's 130%. So it's nearly 4 times as much debt to national GDP. So because debt was so much lower back then, the Fed eventually had the ability to fight inflation by raising rates dramatically, up to 20%, which was done by Fed Chair Volcker. Today, I don't see that possibility. I mean, for the Fed to raise rates enough to really, truly fight inflation. I mean, if inflation right now is at 8.5%, which was the March print, Fed rates would have to be somewhere, let's say, above that. And we both know what that would do to interest payments just on the federal debt, not to mention mortgages, not to mention businesses that are leveraged. I mean, it's just, their hands really are tied. I think that if you really look at this seriously, it seems quite obvious that yes, they will raise rates, maybe even by 50 basis points at a time for over, several months. But there's no way that they're going to get rates above the inflation rate. They can hope inflation will fall. I don't believe they really want inflation to fall that much. High inflation actually helps them repay their debts more quickly and more easily. And so I think what we can expect is somewhat raised rates, nowhere near enough to fight inflation, and inflation basically continuing and staying well above interest rates. And in fact, perhaps even at some point getting somewhat out of hand. We are conducting a really dangerous experiment, really, is what we're doing. And we've been doing that, like you say, since 1933. It's gotten worse since, there was some sort of semblance of control, I guess, up until 71 when Nixon closed the gold window and took the dollar off of gold. But we're conducting a really dangerous experiment because if you look back through millennia of history, this has never been the case. There has not been especially a reserve currency, so to speak, backed by a precious metal. And so, it's just something very dangerous. Debt levels are crazy. They're getting crazier. And I guess in reaction to the 2008-2009 financial crisis, I think that's when modern monetary theory really kicked in. And that's where you're really monetizing the debt. You're not taking into account any concerns about deficits and debt. And true modern monetary theory is when the Treasury and the Fed are apparently supposed to, be working in concert as one. We don't have that in an official way, but we're certainly heading towards that. And then when we got to the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, this all just sort of kicked into high gear. And I have a chart in the book actually that shows what happened to the Fed's balance sheet, and I believe it went in say about 2007 or so to 2000 maybe 12, 13. It went from about 1 trillion to 4 trillion, and then in the space of about 18 months, it went from about 4 trillion to 8 trillion, and so that was much, much faster. This whole thing is really sort of accelerating, and again, it's a very dangerous experiment, and that's why I'm such a bull on silver, gold of course as well, but silver is much more cheaply valued versus gold, and so I believe that silver has considerably more upside, but silver and gold have proven themselves over millennia as inflation and chaos hedges, as we said earlier. And so that's the connection back to silver. It's really something that even if someone has only just a small amount allocated of their overall financial portfolio to silver, it really makes a lot of sense, more now than ever, and especially silver because it's just so cheaply valued, especially versus gold. I completely agree. And I mean, we see these kinds of things all the time. It's nonsense, but to bring something in, make it sound academic, refer to academic papers or research that justifies it, and it obviously serves, as you say, a lot of political purposes. And it will not be difficult to sell, simply because it allows governments to make bigger promises. And who's not going to want to be promised more goodies? And people, I think deep down they kind of probably realized their votes are being bought, but at some point everyone kind of says, well, you know what, everyone's going to kind of pay for this at some point. I might as well kind of get my share, and let's just go for it. So I don't think there's going to be much resistance. I really don't.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information, and it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
I have bad news for you. If you're not rich by now, you're screwed. And if you're in debt, you're even double screwed. How so, you might wonder? Well, the sad truth is that you're working your whole life to make someone else rich. The mega corporations, the banks, the politicians, everyone is getting richer. They get your money. And what is even worse, they get your time, they get your life. You are not even in a rat race, you're in a financial prison. But what could a solution for you look like? Honestly, I don't know, but I know what a solution for me would look like. It's very simple. I use whatever money I have and I multiply it with 1,000. This could make my life much easier and probably yours as well. If you have $1,000 available and multiply this with 1,000, I believe that this could solve some financial issue for the one or the other. Of course, if you're ugly, you would have to multiply it with much more than 1,000. My name is Markus Dahn, and this is what I decided to do. I decided to 1000x my money. This is not a joke. I know what you may be thinking. What is this guy talking about? How should this work? This is not possible. Well, I made a detailed video where I laid out my plan. And some clever folks might even want to look at this plan and copy it and do exactly what I do. This is just a little hint on the side. You have two options. You leave, you forget what you have seen. You do whatever you're doing and you hope that somehow you get some other results. Good luck with that. Or you click the link below the video. You enter your email address, because I'm not showing this to everybody. You at least watch my video on how I plan to 1000x my money. The choice is yours. Make the right choice. Join me. See what a different future you could have. See at least how I plan to do the 1000x. So click on the link below, enter your email address, and I see you on the other side. Your Markus Dahn.